Woo indeed. Hello, world. What is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Our next guest is the go-to personal trainer and group fitness coach of athletes, artists, dancers, celebrities, and people just like you and me. With over 20 years in the fitness industry, her award-winning Stoked Method, unstoppable energy, and client-first teaching style have won her a devoted following, along with collaborations with some of the leading fitness brands. Now, with her new app and on-demand service, for the first time, she's bringing her one-on-one style to the masses. Ladies and gentlemen, make a ridiculous amount of noise for the incredible Kira Stokes. Right here.
Thank you. Hi.
Oh, hello, Kira. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is so cool to have you here right now. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm excited to talk to you all about everything you got going on this app, this amazing on-demand thing that's happening. But first, just how are you? How's life for Kira? How are you doing?
It's wonderful. Yeah. I can't complain. I just got back from LA, which is, I love the LA New York thing, to be able to travel back and forth. I really do. I don't love the flight. I don't love the 6-hour flight. Obviously, I don't sit well. I'd rather be standing right now. Like, I don't sit a lot, but I do. I like the change in the vibe. There's definitely like.
How do you because I was reading about, I don't know how outdated this is, but at some point that your daily routine that you get up at like 4 a.m. Is that, how does that impact?
4:30. A half hour makes a difference. I've slid in my older years. Yeah. I'm just used to it. I feel like, as a trainer, it's what's required. People want to work out either first thing in the morning or at night. So those hours, I will say now with the clientele that I have, I do fill those middle of the day hours because a lot of them are have different schedules. I don't have like your typical workday schedules, but like a 6 a.m. client, you have to train someone at 6. If you're not training someone at 6, you're probably not working that hard.
Do you have to ever, and I'm sure this is the case, but it's just so hard for me to wrap my head around, do you have to get off the plane, grab your stuff, and go right to a training session? Do you ever have a decompression moment?
I typically don't do that. I typically will have like the way I book the flight is I usually fly in the day before. Like if I get off the plane. Yeah, I've got like, you have to be totally energized when you train people. You can't show up and be like, oh, I'm so tired. Nobody wants to hear that. Like people don't want to train with a trainer who walks in the door and is like, this is awful. So, you just have to budget your time wisely, and plan. It's a lot of planning ahead and just knowing your body and knowing how you work best. But it's totally like, it's the best job in the world, so I'm never going to complain about getting up that early.
It's amazing. I want to get into that in a second, but I love that you slipping is from 4 to 4:30. Where like if I slip,
quarter
I'm like,
five is like a really
quarter
5 is like really, yeah. But I mean, I will say like New York days are tough. Like Monday nights, I get home from work at 10:30 at night. Yeah. So you do need to decompress when you get home. The commute. We can both commute. We commute buddies, and. So there are days where I get less sleep than I would like, but then I make up for it other times. So.
Let me ask you a question, hopefully slightly different than a question that you've been asked a trillion times before, but I'm interested in, like, what is your earliest memory of being excited by these things, by pushing your body, by being into fitness and all that? Like, what's the first time you're like, oh, I really dig this?
I think there's so much history as to, like, why this makes sense that I'm doing this for a living. Yeah. My earliest memory of movement was actually, I think I was 6 or 7. My mom would be able to tell you. But there was in our town, I grew up in upstate New York, and there was a race. It was a Father's Day race. And if you were, I think it was 8 and under, you ran a mile. And if you were over 8, you could run the 2-mile race. And so I wanted to run the 2-mile race, but I wasn't old enough. And my sister was, right? So there's a picture of me literally pouting. Like I'm sitting like this on the curb with my hands like this and my head and when my mom shows me that picture, I was like, what was, like, and she goes, well, you weren't allowed to run. You ran the mile, you won the mile. Like I just booked it, right? And I got, you get a little trophy. But I was pouting. She's like, it wasn't good enough for you. You were like really upset that the 2-mile race, like they wouldn't let you in it, and you stood at the starting line with your sister, and they were like, they just like held you back, right? So that's my first memory of like being competitive and like wanting more than knowing I could do more, but not being allowed to do more, and being like really kind of driven and somewhat upset about it.
How old were you? I was reading you were a gymnast for a little while.
I was a gymnast until I graduated high school.
No way.
Yeah. So I was never like, I always say like I wasn't amazing because I didn't have the flexibility. Like to this day, I am not like, that's my downfall is my, I try really hard. Like obviously we all know about mobility and the importance of it. And I do everything I'm supposed to do. It's just your makeup is your makeup. And some people are born super flexible and some people aren't. And I'm one of those, I'm like the strength girl, clearly. So as a gymnast, I was the kid you'd find in the gym doing 200 kips in a row, like whether I was told to or not, because I truly loved it. Like movement to me from the time is pretty much could walk was really something that I felt it was such a huge part of me. I mean, to the point where my father, when I was young, we lived, as I said, upstate New York. Our backyard were the woods, basically, and he took down a couple trees and he hung a literal trapeze. Like I'm talking, had a company come in, put a steel beam across trees and hang a trapeze on one side and a swing on the other. And we had a step ladder. I mean, these days, my parents probably would have been sued. Like, I don't, because the neighborhood kids would come over and do this with me, but you wouldn't be, like, it's unheard of, right? It's full trapeze. And I'd climb up the step ladder. No net, nope. My sister would swing the trapeze to me. It was like a metal bar. It was like serious, yeah.
How?
And I would just jump off the step ladder and just swing and do like mill circles. And my sister's older than me, and she would tell me what to do, and I would do anything she said. Like she'd be like, "Do a kip now," as it's swinging, and I had 2 concussions as a kid. Like I felt, but it was I'm 44, so like back then there were no rule. Like you think about it now, nobody would put that in their backyard. No. Like there's no chance. You'd have to get like liability insurance.
I saw a swing
for
at the park the other day for a child that was like a full roll cage.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a whole apparatus. I was like, we had a strip of leather and chains. That was it.
Times have changed. Yeah, and not only that, so he also had shipping rope from a ship attached from tree to tree. So I would shimmy from tree to tree, and he put balance beams all across, like from tree to tree. One went parallel to the ground, then one went up, one went across. So our whole backyard in the woods was an obstacle course. And that was what I did every day. And it was just, after school I'd come home and I'd get on the trapeze and I'd swing. And so that was like, clearly it was a part of me that I just loved movement. And I also weighed and measured all my stuffed animals from the time I was 5.
We only have so much time, but we're going to...
There's so much back there. There's so much. It's like I had an imagination. I literally have files of it. So I had 100, and obviously my imagination was pretty amazing. Like I had, 2 beds in my room, and my second twin bed had 100 stuffed animals on it, about 100. And I would keep a file. I had a file cabinet, and I couldn't really read or write at that point.
How old were you when you got your filing cabinet?
I was 5. And my mom didn't have a scale. My mother's never worked out in her life, by the way. She does the 5 exercises I gave her about 10 years ago, won't add to it, and she walks. So she was like, where is this coming from? Like, so I had a yardstick and I had a pretend scale, and I would I'd line them up every 2 weeks in the hallway, and my mom would be like, "It's weigh-in day." She's like, "Here we go again." And I'd sit there, totally. I'd sit there with my little fight, and she'd look at my scribble, and it would just be like a number with like a random name, and she'd hear me going, "Pooh Bear, like you've had too much honey." Like it's just,
lecturing Pooh Bear?
Yeah, I was an interesting child. So it's like,
alone.
And as I said, like this was not my parents doing anything to like foster this. It was just in my brain. Yeah, my sister wasn't a part of it. She was like, so weird. It's like she's so strange.
She didn't get her filing cabinet till she was in high school.
She was she's like not interested in it. No. So it's like I do believe it's like that nature and nurture situation. It was like for me that was just nature,
That's wild.
Yeah.
Was there a thing that, like, in spite of the trapeze and the ropes and all that, was there a thing that your parents wouldn't let you have? Like, no, you can have a trampoline. That's dangerous. Like, was there or no? It was a different time.
Well, they wouldn't let me have an actual trampoline.
No way, really?
No, they wouldn't let. I had a friend down the street who had one, so we felt like we didn't really need one. But my mom was very nervous about that. But not the
ropes from the
trapeze.
trees, not a problem.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
She was like, let her go, let her swing. She's like, something major could happen to her on the trampoline. Yeah, that they wouldn't let me have that. And then, I mean, pretty much everything else was fair game.
Amazing.
I feel like, yeah.
I love when you talk about the significance of movement in your life and how you felt it from a really early age. And we were just sitting here just looking at even just the logo and just talking about the movement that it represents and how it didn't hit me in the face until it was large and hitting me in the face.
It's not supposed to really hit you in the face.
No, it's beautiful. That's the perfect
it's supposed to be
logo.
subtle,
It
right?
is.
It's like, it just looks like a moving body.
But it does. It has like a body in motion, almost like a modern dance-esque kind of move. Like it's very graceful, very beautiful.
Thank you. And I was born a brand with my last name. You know what I mean? Like that's my maiden name. That's not my husband's last name is Jacobus. Get Jacobus.
Get Jacobus.
And he's very traditional, so he was kind of like, "You sure?" I'm like, "I'm not taking your last name. I'm just not." I'm like, I just can't. I'm like, it's a brand, you know. I was like, "Could you change your last name to Stokes? How about we just switch the tables, turn the tables? It's 2019. Let's do it."
Also, like, I can't imagine the Jacobist app.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gonna help me with taxes more than it's gonna help me how to get fit. Like Jacobist. I think of Jacobian Meyer.
I think of like Jacobian Meyer, yeah.
That's what I think
there's a lot that we get, you know, there's benefits to his last name too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stokes is, I mean, stoked, right? The Stoked Method. It's so great.
Name. It's a great name.
Oh,
it's just not for this.
It's just so, it's not a fitness.
This is clearly better. This is in this
This
context,
is fitness.
this
Yeah.
is the way to do it.
People ask me if I changed my, you know, they're like, is that your real last name? I was like, oh yeah. I don't think, like my grandmother was probably rolling over in her grave that I'm using stoked all the time because she was she was like a Southern belle, very proper. It's probably not what she is. Yeah. So it's a little different than what she had envisioned, but you know, it's totally, I'm lucky. I feel like I'm really lucky in a lot of ways.
That is really lucky. That's an awesome, perfect name.
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned in the introduction, it's a known fact, you've been in the industry for 20 years. And so
23.
23?
23.
Good
really
for you.
almost
God
24.
Damn, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So the point that I'm getting towards is you were in this game long before social media was a part of it. Long before you had to have a brand.
Totally.
You know, so you were there at the forefront kind of watching it, and you obviously recognized it as a platform, as an opportunity to connect with fans and connect with followers and things of that nature. Was it difficult in the early days? Was it having to set up the camera, go through the thing, run back? Like, was it a whole new part of the process for you that you had to adjust to?
So the interesting thing about social media for me, as you said, like when I started in this industry, there's, again, so much background to me in this industry. When I first started, I mean, I went to Boston College and graduated in 96. And I started in 94. I guess you would call it sort of interning as a trainer. So I had a wonderful mentor who was a physical therapist, and he worked he had his own physical therapy place that was attached to a gym that I worked the front desk in because my parents were like, we're sending you to Boston College. We're not paying for a gym membership. Work out. If you want to work out, you know, if you want a gym membership, you've got to find a way to get it yourself. So I was like, I'll work at the front desk because I want to be, you know, have this membership. And I just fell in love with the energy and fell in love with, you know, I'd always been an athlete. So I loved everything about being in there. And I'd watched this one man, his name was Tim Brewster, and he was the first person I really saw that bridged the gap between physical therapy and personal training, and how he put movement together and would work with people, and his just demeanor really, I just felt very attracted to it. So he took me under his wing, and not only did he teach me how to put movement together, but he really educated me on the PT side as well, because I was kind of going back and forth. Do I want to go to get my master's in physical therapy after college, or what do I want to do? And he would sit me down after every person that he worked with, both on the PT side and the training side, and tell me the why behind everything. Not just how to do a movement, but why it was placed where it was. And it's so important. And I basically started working for him in, you know, not getting paid for 2 years, unpaid, like an internship, which I believe everyone should have to do in fitness. I'll be honest. Like, I say this all the time. You're dealing with bodies. Like, it's no small thing, right? It's like people take fitness seriously and not seriously. But like, you get one body, right? And as much as you research who you go to as a doctor or a dentist, the same should be true for the trainer that you're investing your body, that you're trusting with your body. So, that back in that day, I was making, then I started working at the gym part-time as a trainer, fitness staff floor, making at that point, it was like $8 an hour or something, putting my time, you have to put your hard time in, right? I spent, it was years when I was in college doing that and interning. And I remember it took me I think it was 3 years after I was working with Tim that he actually let me train somebody, that he was actually like, now you're ready. Like now, okay, like I feel like you have the knowledge. I had gotten myself the certification and whatever, but he was like, programming is no two bodies are the same, right? So to learn how to program for different people is a skill, and it doesn't just happen like that. And until you feel confident that you can look at a body, assess it, and truly know what is probably best movement-wise for them, how can you train that person, right? So my method was honed over years of, and I sometimes say this, that I wish I could get my hands back on the first clients that I trained in Boston, because I think back now and I'm like, wow, I knew so little as to how to put movement together for their particular body. My method developed, I didn't even realize I had a method until about 10 years ago. So I'd been in the industry for 12 years or so before I realized, oh, I really have a method as to how I train and how I put movement together. So when I look at the social media aspect of it, and I'm so grateful for it, like clearly I love Instagram, right? And I love Facebook, I love all of it, just because it allows me another way to get more information out to people. Like my account is not about, very rarely do you actually see a picture of me just standing there. Right. It's always about, here's a move of the day and here's exactly how to do it. It's not just the move, I don't just throw it out there, but I give you the step-by-step too, right? So I've kind of used it as another way, it's almost like writing a book, right? To educate people on fitness. And it has enabled me to touch so many more bodies, which I love. It's a third job, essentially. So one is like training my clients, another one is teaching classes. But the third job is now social media that didn't exist. Like I always say to my husband too, my husband didn't realize he was gonna become my Instagram husband at the same time when we got married. Like when we got married 10 years ago, there was no Instagram. And all of a sudden he's like, now I'm a photographer too. He's like, how did this happen? Like half my life I'm spending just taking videos of you. And I'm super grateful for it. I will say it's time consuming, right? It's like, I now have to budget time. It's like 2 hours a day of like, it really takes 2 hours a day when you add up like the DMs you answer, the post you're putting up, planning the post, me writing it out, like all of it. It's a good 2 hours a day that you spend on social media that I never imagined to be part of my job. But again, grateful for it.
For those 2 hours, do you find yourself, do you do it like at a standing desk on like, do you try to remain active so you're not stagnant for 2 hours? Like,
totally.
Yeah.
So I have a gym at home. Like I have an elliptical at home, and pretty much everyone knows that if like any phone call I take or anything I'm doing, like I'm moving. I'm either on that or I roll my spin bike out of the garage into the driveway. I'm just a firm believer. I also just think better in movement. Like I feel like movement creates in my mind emotion too, right? So not only do I find that with clients, that I think my major at Boston College was psychology. So I always say I replace the couch that people sit on when they go, for counseling with a jump rope, right? Because people open up when they move, right? You're able to, as a trainer, as a personal trainer, you become a part of that person's life and family, right? And a lot more is revealed to you than to most people in their lives. And that happens because they feel more vulnerable as they're working out. Like emotions start to just come to the surface. So yeah, I rarely sit still. And
so now here's the challenging question. Here's the take all of that we just talked about. Bless you. Take all of that that you just talked about. The 3 years waiting until you finally trained a person. The 23 years in the industry and all that stuff. How do you then condense this knowledge that you've attained, this method that you've developed, and come up with the app and the on-demand service? Is this something you could have done 5 or 10 years ago?
No, it's funny. I was just talking about this. I think sometimes in life we all think like, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? Right? When you come upon something really amazing, when you do something really life-changing, which this app is and has been for me it launched about a month ago, and it has been pretty life-changing for me. Just the pure feeling of changing people's lives on a greater scale, right? Which was my ultimate goal of that. My first thought was, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? And then I really sat with it and I was like, I wasn't ready to do this 10 years ago. Like as I said, a method takes years to hone, right? So everything that's on that app has been tested and proven, and it works, right? And I feel so good about the fact that it's been tested and proven over 20 years, right? So it's hard to argue, right? And you look at the bodies, and you look at the bodies that I've worked with and the people that I've worked with, and not just training, but in classes, and it's like you can see the results. You can see that it works. So, I could not have done it. Like, I can't, I will say that, I'm 44. So when you look at a lot of the apps that are out there that are, you see people that are in their 20s that have launched apps, and which is awesome. That's great for them. I feel like my experience speaks volumes, right? So the fact that, I don't know, I feel like when you're over 40 or over 35, you start to become this kind of forgotten age group where it's like everybody goes, the people that are on social media most are 25 to 34, right? Or younger. But truthfully, like, if you're 35 and older, you want that too. You want somebody to look at and to know, like, this person's done this for a really long time. It's not just like someone that could go out and do a workout and then eat a pizza and look the way they look because they're 22. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a different thing. And I really wanted to appeal to every age group so that, I have a lot of clients who are over 40 who are like, I don't really want to do an app when I'm by someone who's 20 because I don't have that body anymore. Right. Like, I don't know I have to do something different. I have to be mobile. I want to be able to run for the rest of my life. So what kind of workouts can I do that are going to keep me safe and healthy, right? And still really challenging.
Was it at all challenging for you to find that sweet spot? When we just talked about how every body is different, every individual has specific needs, and going in, I'm creating an app, I'm creating an experience, and I'm trying to cast a wide net. I'm trying to create an experience that everyone can benefit from. Does that really push you to have to distill even further everything you've already learned, or at this point, at the 23 years, you knew exactly where to go and what?
I think you're always evolving. I feel like I'm learning, as time goes on with the app. The great thing about the app is that its content will consistently be added. So like a new category is going to be added next week called Stoked Unleashed. And it sounds scary, doesn't it? What that means is that you're not tied to anything but your environment or your body. Yeah. So what it is like the different workouts take place in different places, an apartment, a park bench. Like, so you basically have no excuse, right? You can look around and be like, oh, there's actually a full body couch workout on one of the. So it's like you look in, because I do get a lot of people, and you realize there are people who are like, I don't even have weights at home. I don't have anything. And I just didn't want people to have the excuse to say, I can't work out. There should never be an excuse. People have health issues. Everybody have things going on, but I feel like there should always be a way to move. There should always be a way that you're able to move. So I feel like this app will evolve. I'm constantly evolving. I'm learning from the people who are doing the app, like what they want more of. And like the app is for all of you. It's for all of them. It's not for me. Do you know what I mean? So I want to give people what they want. Do I know in terms of the programming? That will always remain pretty consistent because I know that that's what works. So the way that I put movement together, and I always say it's like a functional flow of movement. And the best way to describe every circuit, whether you're doing Stoked Athletic Core or Stoked 360 or the different offerings, I always say that every circuit is like a chapter in a book, right? Yeah. And when you read a book, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to every chapter. And every word matters. So within a workout, every move should matter, as does the placement, right? So the programming is so important. It's not like you wouldn't, and I say this often, you wouldn't put a burpee before a squat. Yeah. Why? Because a burpee actually involves a squat. So if you haven't already done the squat, your body's not going to have the movement pattern correct to do the burpee. Like, so there's no just movement just thrown in there haphazardly. There's a reason and a purpose. And by the end of the workout, it's like the conclusion to the story. Like and it all makes sense, right? Your body just comes together as one. So that'll remain constant. Yeah. But the different offerings are going to change all the time. That's what's fun about it.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, this is perfect. We just talked about the significance of transitions and everything being tied together, because I'm about to crush it with this segue. You talked...
I'm so glad.
You talked about how there should be no excuse, and then you don't want people to have excuses or reasons. And we've got a Twitter question that goes nicely with that, coming to us from @MimiMeow89, fantastic name. Mimi asks, what advice would you give to someone who doesn't feel motivated to exercise? Someone who makes those excuses. What would you say to that person?
So I always say the first thing you should remember is that you have to replace the word "I have to" or the statement "I have to" with "I get to." And if you can do that, and it kind of applies to everything in life. Like, it is a privilege, and I have my athletes, I call them athletes, not students, who take my classes, and my clients say this beginning and end of every workout. I say, take a moment to be grateful for the ability to move and challenge your body as you do today, because it's truly a gift. And I feel like sometimes that's all it takes to get you to take that step out the door, right? And just remember that, it's this method, it's called KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Sometimes we overcomplicate things, right? Sometimes it's just about moving. It is just about getting outside, getting out the door. So you can come up with, excuses are everywhere. Like, you have to just... Excuses are easy. Yeah, it's like, just take a moment to realize, you've got one body, and what do you want to do with it? You want it to be your best body.
We've got another question, one question we're going to go to in just a second, but I'm curious, and it doesn't sound like this is something you ever had to deal with, but I think for a lot of people, especially if they're just starting out, if they're just getting to a gym, one of the biggest things is they're self-conscious, they're in their head, everyone's looking at me, I look like an idiot doing this thing, am I even doing this thing right, stuff like that. Is that a hurdle you, in your personal and professional life, ever had to overcome? Did you ever feel self-conscious it sounds like you were very confident in your body from very early on.
It's funny, because it might be the opposite extreme, actually, for me. I have always been really a very confident person. I'll say that, and I've talked about this, a little bit with different outlets, but being, muscular as a female, being defined, it's accepted now. I feel like now it's, more wildly, accepted than it used to be, but I would say what I've felt most is there have been times where, and it actually would upset my husband actually more than me, because I'm like, whatever, I'm very happy with the way that I look. But I have times where, I walk down a beach and you hear someone say, ew, that's disgusting, I would never want to look like that, right? So, which you feel weird saying, because it's like, I'm not complaining about it, because I choose to look this way. I've worked really hard, but it's amazing to me that people will say it out loud, as you're walking by, so you can hear it. So it's kind of a different kind of discrimination but I also know that it comes from a different place in these people. It's them not feeling good about themselves, and that's typically when someone says something like that, that's always the case. But, and it's never made me step and look and go, oh gosh, do I not want to look like this anymore because of someone, not even for a second. But no one likes to hear it, right? So I think that I've dealt with more of that than me being self-conscious walking into a gym. I walk in, I could care less what I'm very much that kind of person. I don't care what people think. I always show how I do, when I do workouts in the middle of the gym, if I'm jumping rope, I literally do it in the middle of the gym floor, Lifetime Fitness, where I work out in Westchester. Where you're from.
We're very close to that Sal's Pizza plug.
Yeah,
we're gonna do it.
We're gonna
that
get
might count, but I'm gonna do it before we get out of here.
It's happening. I believe it's gonna happen. And someone, I get these DMs, people don't you feel weird doing that in the middle of the gym floor? I'm like, I could care less. I'm paying a membership here too. As long as I'm not bothering anybody, I don't care what people think. And more often than not, you get people that start kind of mimicking what I'm doing. It's almost like I'm giving them a little bit of training, because you see them looking and they see more people grabbing jump ropes. And I love that. It's you don't have to tell me I'm influencing you, but I'm just happy to see you grab that jump rope and start to just put it out there, So I think if I agree. Especially for women, I feel like because these are the questions I get often, is like when you walk into a weight room and it's like male, it's still, there's more men in the weight room than women, right? And you go over to I think the most intimidating thing for women is going over to like the free weight area and looking at those weights and being like, I don't know which weight to grab. I don't know exactly what my form is, which is exactly why I'm launching a part of the app called In the Gym, which is like there's a cable crossover machine and you might look at it and go, I don't know what to do with that machine. I know I should do something for my triceps there, but I don't know what. Well, it's like going to simplify it for you. It's like your entire workout is going to work from that cable machine. You don't ever have to move from it. You can use that one piece of equipment and it's all right there for you. So, because I do realize that is something that, more women need to hit that weight room. And it definitely bothers me when I walk in a gym and I see that it's like 80% men still, using in the free weight section. And they do you just have to not care. You just have to walk in and do you,
Good for you. That's amazing. Okay, we got one more. We're going to take it right over here. Go for it.
Hi. So I really love working out, but I always have trouble working out my lower abs, and especially with the summer coming up, do you have some quick and easy lower ab exercises?
Lower abs. Yeah. It's hard for me to talk about it and not demonstrate. Maybe when I throw on my workout clothes in a second and come back at some point, we can
do you want to demonstrate? And I was like, you're not prepared for that right now.
So,
nice outfit.
Thank you. Couple things to remember. It's rare for everybody to see me not in gym clothes. Your rectus abdominis, right? Your whole abdominal wall is one unit, right? Just like any other area in your body, it's very hard. You can't spot reduce, right? But your lower abdomen is, for women especially, it's an area that's definitely harder to hit. Your hip flexors right here are connected to your lower abs, right? So anytime you move your legs, you're going to tap into your hip flexor, and therefore you're going to get into your lower abs a little more. So it's so hard not to demonstrate and to talk through it, but visualize laying flat on your back, right? So you're in a supine position, and do you know what that is? Supine position means your legs straight up. Yeah. Okay. So your knees are going to be over your hips, and you have a 90-degree angle calf to hamstring, right? So you're like this. You're
Perfect.
literally like this, right? Okay. So pretend I'm laying on the ground. So you tuck. Do you guys? That's a good angle right there. Right. So you want to tuck your tailbone, and number one key is to know how to activate your core, right? So when you stand and you're sticking your butt out like this, people do it for selfies, they stand like that, right? This is the opposite of core engagement, right? To engage your core, you have to tuck. Do you see that? See how I tuck and I squeeze my butt like this, right? The second you tuck and you squeeze your butt, you're activating your core. So when you're laying on the ground and you tuck and you squeeze your butt, your low back is going to be down. And then from that point, you keep a 90-degree angle calf to hamstring, and you slowly bring your heels to the floor and pull them back up. Slowly bring your heels to the floor, pull them back up. So that's one. Another one is legs straight up to the ceiling. You're still laying on your back, and you do those tiny little hip tips. Do you know what I'm talking about? So your legs are straight up and you tip up. And what you see a lot of people doing is throwing their legs over their head, right? So they tip and they're doing a rocking motion like this. That's not doing anything for your abs. It's that tiny tip of your hips where you lift and release. That's going to hit your low abdomen. Planking, when you plank, right? That's your transverse abdominis, your deepest internal abdominal muscles. When you're in a plank, take both knees, tap them to the ground, and press back. That'll hit your low abdomen as well. So if I would sit here and demo it all, but it might be really weird for me to be.
I mean, we just vacuumed. So
if
that's
we
a concern,
could.
I don't think.
Yeah. Okay, I'll show you really quick.
Okay, should I? Does it make? Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
You know what? Go for it.
Is this good? Can you guys see me? Okay. So see how right here? See how I tuck? Right? So here I'm arching. Do you see space between my low back and the floor? You can't really because of this blouse. But when I tuck, you can come over here.
This is happening right now. It's private lesson. Come on up here.
It's all happening right here.
You asked. You're going to learn. You're going to learn today. Come on down.
Kind of where I spend half my life right here. Okay, right. So put your hand right here. You can come up here. Right?
This is live.
Put your hand under my back. See how it's anchored down? See how now it's not? So this is where I'm not engaged. This is where I am. right? So you keep your low back down and then see the angle in my legs, right? I'm gonna slowly bring my heels to the ground, see how my low back is still down, and then I pull back over like this, and heels down and then up. And then the second one, toes up, and you tip. See how I'm tipping? Tiny, not this, right?
Yeah,
It's
you don't
this
want that.
tiny tip of the hips right there. And then when you're planking, here, right here, take both knees. Oh, that's so great. Take both knees and you tap to the ground. Tap to the ground.
Yeah, if you don't applaud, there you go.
There we go. I mean, you know, has that ever happened before?
No, that was a beautiful moment.
It's a good moment,
That was
right?
that was absolutely
I like that. I'm much
fantastic.
more. I have a lot more fun like doing that kind of
Next
stuff.
time you come, no chairs. Next time you
No
come.
chairs.
We're just gonna stand and we're gonna go through it. Yeah, it's
Just
gonna be
sit right
fun.
on the ground.
And
Get comfy.
yeah, we're gonna have a good time. All right, I'm getting the signal. I gotta wrap things up. Looks like we're not gonna get the Sal's Pizza plug in after all. But what
Seriously?
I am.
Do you guys know about Sal's Pizza? Anybody here from
Is the
Westchester?
Westchester thing?
No.
All right, it's worth the
All right.
40-minute train ride.
Yep.
Go to Grand Central. Go to Mamaroneck. Get the best Sicilian slice of pizza you ever had in
Sal's
your life.
Pizza.
Sal's Pizza. We're both from Westchester.
bonded
Sorry,
over
bringing
that.
it up.
Yeah.
And that's why you're here today. They find people
Yeah.
at Sal's sent you down. No, I'm kidding. No, the reason
Represent
you,
Sal's Pizza. Wow.
The reason you are here, not only because you're awesome, thank you so much for taking time and hanging
Thank
out with us,
you.
but I want to tell everybody, so that was a fantastic demo, and obviously Kira knows her stuff. That should be clear by now. There's no debate. So do
Thank
yourself
you.
a favor. Head on over to ondemand.kirastokes.com to check out the On-Demand series, or in literally every app store, Kira Stokes Fit. It's out there right now. And it
It's
updates
out.
regularly?
It updates, yeah. There's a whole new section coming out next
Pretty
week. so,
amazing.
yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to do it, but you got to make a ridiculously awesome amount of noise. Kira Stokes right here. Join me in thanking
Thank
everybody.
you.
Come on.
Thank you.